Hello, family members. Hope you're having a good day today. I want to talk to you about a subject that's a little bit personal for me. and I want to kind of tell you why I want to talk about this. So I'm going to include a link in the description, but I was watching this video by a YouTuber called Petal Palmer, who I happened to stumble across. Um, she's like I think a pre-med student at WU, and she had cancer. So, like obviously, West Virginia connection. I'm a West Virginia girl, and my mom went to WU. She got her master's degree there. And, having both being cancer survivors, I was like, oh, she sounds interesting. And so this is the first time I watched one of her videos, but she was talking about the case of a young man, 15 years old, who died essentially because he had surgery right before the weekend, and then when he had complications, the weekend staff didn't recognize the severity of his condition and didn't do anything, and basically he died from internal bleeding like 3 days later. And it was a fully preventable sort of thing. And one of the main topics that she talks about in that video is about how, it was the fact that there was, a weekend staff and they didn't want to call the attending physician that caused the problem. And watching it was a little bit strange for me because I have a very similar story. But before we get to that, I want to sort of say broadly, yes, this was a video about the healthcare system and how it fails patients. And before I kind of talk about our experience, I want to make it clear, it's not necessarily the people who you speak to at the hospital that cause this problem. Hospitals are chronically understaffed. Even if they're not having trouble finding staff, they just don't staff enough. They don't want to pay the amount that they need to pay to properly staff. And so nurses, doctors, orderlies all have far more to do in their shift than they can get done. And it doesn't leave them time to really, stop and focus on patients when that's what they need to do, because they also have so much other things hanging over their head. And so I would lay the blame for that young man's death directly on the United States healthcare system as a whole, because we are a country that pays more for healthcare, and yet we have to constantly deal with chronically underfunded practitioners. And I just find that utterly bizarre. Doctors are sort of limited how much time they're allowed to spend with a patient. You know, and nurses have more on their plate, administrative stuff, behind the scenes stuff, paperwork, the patient stuff gets completely overlooked because there's so much that has to be done on paper that the administration is going to, cause a riot. There'll be significant consequences for any one of the employees, the healthcare practitioners that could be involved if they don't get all of their like busy work and stuff done behind the scenes, And so the system is set up where the incentive is to ignore patients if you can get away with it. And so let me set the sort of story for you here. Let me set the background. This was back before I had cancer. This was 2016, right at the end of December. My mom and I are here in Florida, and my dad is at the house in West Virginia because he wanted to do some hunting. That's my daddy for you, okay? So he's up there by himself at the house, and he decides that he's going to go duck hunting with a friend of his. And if you don't know anything about duck hunting, it's the sort of thing where you got to get there before first light, because shooting light is like when you're going to get the best chance to get a duck. And so he was out at like 5:30 in the morning or something, super early. And he's getting the truck warmed up, with snow on the ground, and it was super cold, and he was defrosting the windshield and all the things that you do when you live up north in the wintertime and you got to go anywhere, which is why I don't live there anymore. And Daddy, to this day, still insists that he put the car in park, their truck in park. But when he stepped out of the truck to clean off the windshield just a little bit more, the truck started rolling down the driveway, which is very steep. It's West Virginia. And the big heavy door, because this was a big heavy work truck, he actually, lives on a farm and used it. It knocked him over, and one of the front wheels of the truck actually ran over him. And then the truck goes down the driveway and crashes into a tree on the neighbor's horse pasture. And he goes to get up. He's all annoyed, like, oh, I'm gonna have to call Ray and tell him I'm gonna be late. And he realizes he can't get up. And he didn't have a coat on. He didn't have his cell phone on him. He lives out in the middle of nowhere, so there wasn't like a close nearby neighbor. And he laid on the ground for like 45 minutes or an hour before he was able to flag down a passing commuter who literally saved his life. So by the time that we know that anything's going on, everything's been happening for a while. The guy that came and saved him got help. Dad's friend was there. One of the people who lived way down in the valley came and helped out. And so I'm asleep in bed, and Mom gets this call, and I don't even know what it is that's happened. I really had no idea. She's just like, I could tell it's something really bad and that we're going to need to go. And so I just start packing. I start packing myself up and the animals up, and we're on the road before I really fully understand what's happening. Like, that's how quickly we were out the door. Because, we're a good 13, 14-hour drive from him. And my brother and his fiance are like a good 4 hours away, maybe. And so, we're trying to get updates. We're trying to figure out what's going on. And this was like 2 days before New Year's Eve. And it was also like a Friday night or something. And it was an absolute nightmare trying to get any information about what they were going to do for Dad, what was going on. He was in so much pain, and yet, you couldn't get anyone to come help you with pain management. My mom kept trying to get somebody in the hospital administration's attention and just couldn't. And he was made to fast. They would not give him food because they thought it was possible he might need some sort of surgery soon. But then they sat on their asses for hours and hours and hours and didn't tell him if he was going to go into surgery or not. And then he never actually went into surgery. Like, they basically didn't do much of any sort of treatment to him at all. And the reason why was because it was a weekend and a holiday. And so the place was fully understaffed on every level. And, people who might be normally sort of on call were just not available. There was nobody there to help us, to help him. At one point before we got there, he sat in a hospital bed in the hallway for like hours before my brother showed up. And finally they got him a room and all this. This, by the way, was at W Hospital. The same place where Petal Palmer goes to school. Just coincidentally. But that really taught me that our healthcare system is just unbelievably broken. If you get sick or hurt and it's the weekend, which is, 2/7 of the time, or a holiday, which, adds on to that, you might have a worse health outcome. You might be like that young man and actually even die of a preventable cause, because for some reason the hospital system operates differently on Saturdays and Sundays than it does on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm sorry, but my body doesn't work like that. If I'm sick on a Saturday, I'm sick on a Saturday. I can't just wait until Monday when, there would be better staffing at the medical facilities. Like, I understand that sort of a Monday through Friday sort of schedule is what a lot of people would like to have, because that's what their family, probably their spouse and kids are on. But there are certain things, certain operations within our country where what happens on a Saturday should be exactly the same as what happens on a Friday. What happens on a Monday should be the same as what happens on a Sunday. There is no reason at all for a Monday and a Saturday to be different in a hospital setting. That is the kind of place that should be operating 7 days a week with the same operating capacity. It's absolutely obtuse to assume that people's health will just schedule itself around what's convenient for administration, for HR to staff. They need to be paying healthcare professionals more, especially nurses and orderlies and things like that. It's a tough, hard job, and they need to be hiring more of them, and they need to be staffing higher, and they need to expect that as much can happen on a Saturday as on a Friday. Friday morning is when this all happened. He didn't get to the hospital until Friday afternoon. If he had gotten there Friday morning, he probably would have had completely different treatment. But because he got there a few hours later, my dad was made to suffer for days. And he has had severe neurological problems ever since then. And they didn't do anything to fix the fact that he had nerve damage. They were just like more concerned about the fact that he had a dislocated hip than anything else. The stuff that's really easy to see on an x-ray, they're going to treat that. But the stuff that you have to listen to the patient about their pain and their experience, they completely missed that. And I don't know if there is something they could have done that would have given him better quality life for the rest of his life, but it's possible because it was a weekend and a holiday. And I just find that infuriating. When the stakes are this high, when we're talking about people's lives or the quality of their lives for the rest of their life on the line, oh my gosh, it's the weekend, oh well. What the heck? This isn't like a restaurant that can just close on a Monday and a Tuesday because they don't get enough business and, they don't want to have to have to staff that or whatever. This is a freaking healthcare provider, a hospital, something that is supposed to be available to people 24/7. And there's no reason, no sensible reason why he should get lesser care. Anybody should get lesser care because of the day of the week. I just find the whole thing absolutely baffling. Absolutely baffling. Car accidents don't only happen Monday through Friday, okay? Heart attacks don't happen just Monday through Friday, okay? Strokes, the collapsed lungs, poisonings, any number of things that can happen to a person happen any day of the week, and our bodies don't care about the weekend, okay? When I was so sick that I couldn't ignore my cancer anymore and I finally went to the ER, it was a weekend. Of course, right? And I was really out of it. I don't necessarily know that my description of the entire events would be very complete because I was so anemic. I had 3 blood transfusions and a bag of iron over that weekend. I was a mess, okay? And they had put my IV here, and when I sleep like this. I can't sleep, especially in a little twin hospital bed, any other way. But they never attempted to move this, even though I was telling them it was a lot of pain. And when they were giving me the iron, it completely blew out, and there was just iron dripping. And so then they had to get me over here. They couldn't get me here. It took 7 tries and 5 employees to be able to get an IV on me. And I'm not an easy stick necessarily, but if that's the worst time I've ever had with getting an IV. And in the process of cancer and all that, I had a lot of IVs. But just makes you wonder if the people that were treating me were just not practiced enough to be able to get a good stick on me, If I had gone to the ER on a Tuesday instead of a Friday, do you think, or Saturday, I don't even remember what day of the week it was anymore, but, if I had gone on a Tuesday, would they have caught this before it blew out? And I had spent a day and a half in pain every time I tried to sleep, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'm very grateful to those people, all the people that helped me that weekend. If they were understaffed or undertrained, I don't hold that against them. But it just shouldn't be like this. It should not be that medical care decisions of any nature are made with an eye towards efficiency or profitability. I find the whole idea of a for-profit healthcare system intensely disturbing. And this is what it gets you. It gets you worst care that costs more. It's the kind of system that'll kill little boys like that little boy because he was recovering from a surgery over the weekend, an optional surgery. He didn't have to have it. And just, oh, jeez. And when my dad needed him, they couldn't be there for him because they were understaffed. And when I worked for Amazon, everybody worked every holiday. You just expected it. And then if you were able to get off, then you were lucky and that was fine. But they made sure that we were staffed enough. How is it a hospital can't do that? You know, when I worked there, there was no, it wasn't like everybody pretty much had to work one weekend day because it was a 24/7 operation, and we didn't, but thankfully, at the time I worked there, it wasn't, our call center wasn't 24/7, but, like, from a business perspective, they didn't treat, Sunday as a day that needed staffing less urgently than Monday, you know? And that was for a pretty low wage job. I mean, it was fine. I got good benefits. Thank goodness I had that when I got cancer and everything. But, like, it seems like a hospital should be able to staff at least as well as an Amazon call center. Okay? Right? And yet, apparently not. So, family members, sorry about. I had to get this one off my chest because I watched that video and I was just like, this is. I mean, it reminded me so much of what happened with my dad, and I remembered how helpless it felt and how frustrating it was. And he came home with us at the end of the weekend. Like he wasn't able to walk for a few months afterwards, and but I mean, he came home. And that poor woman went through all the same stuff we went through, watching her child slowly die in horrible agony. And she didn't even get to take her son home at the end of the experience. Whew. I can't even imagine. So, I think that's what we miss in U.S. healthcare. Is we miss it's people. We think of patients as like case numbers or statistics or whatever, and that's just a person's life, a person's pain, a person's anxiety and frustration and fear are all important things that shouldn't be afterthoughts in our health care system. So I will leave it at that because I could probably go on forever on this one, family members. But I do hope you have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves and those around you. And try not to get sick on the weekend, I guess.